All right, a couple things. First is I'm taking this out because I'm going to be wandering around because I've got a lot of slides that are going to appear in just a second. Boom, look at that. That was magic. And I'll also be looking at my phone. This is not because I'm checking my Twitter feed, although if you want to tweet about this, that's awesome, but also just to keep on time because I know that I'm the only thing standing between you and lunch, which is an awkward position to put me in, but that's all right. I'll speak really, really quickly. It won't make the hour go faster, but it'll feel like it does. Thanks for having me. Thanks for showing up. This is quite a venue, quite an event as well. Thanks to Mitch and the entire committee for putting everything together. Thank you for Delta for getting me out of Atlanta. That was quite the undertaking, although it looked better than the day before, but that was nice. So there were a lot of things that we could talk about, right, with social media and the law. And I chose to kind of talk about 7 different stories, which is where I think some of the most interesting intersections of social media and legal issues are today, in the near future, potentially in the distant future. And plus, you know, social media has a lot of great stories, a lot of really funny stories. We already heard some of the funny statistics earlier, that 10% of texting while you're having sex is a great one. I think we should keep that one, you know, going on Twitter. But I don't know if it's true or not, but it's just really funny. But we'll talk about some other statistics, talk about a lot of different issues and some of these stories. But before we get to those stories, let me just lay out some of the foundation, right? Kind of set the stage for what we're going to talk about. First, I want to make the point, in case it wasn't clear to you before, social media is much, much bigger than social networking. Okay, social networking as we know it, Facebook, Twitter, some of those really large platforms, those are big. Social media is actually bigger than that. Social media is, jumping around, it's any tool or service that uses the internet to facilitate a conversation. Okay, so it is certainly Facebook and Twitter and all of those, but it's also blogs, it's also wikis, it's even YouTube comments, and that's a whole special community of itself, right? There are a lot of areas that social media impacts, and that's one of the reasons why this is such a fascinating area. And there's so many topics to talk about and kind of interesting intersections. But just understand that. When we're talking social media, bigger than social networking, that's the big one. And because it's so big, social media legal issues covers everything, right? What was so fantastic is, look, when you talk about social media law, it really begins with marketing. If you look out and do some Google searches, you will find a lot of information about social media legal issues in the marketing world. And that makes a lot of sense, right? Because, I mean, there's an obvious intersection with consumers and marketing. Marketing is a highly regulated space, so social media going there, all the marketers going there, that makes sense. But there are so many interesting topics to talk about. And that's why, really, when we got to this panel, or this symposium, right, and seeing how quickly these topics grew, I was so excited to see the 4 panels here, right? Employment, afterlife, privacy, ethics. We're not even talking about marketing here today. I mean, I'm going to talk about it a little bit in terms of some of those issues, but that's so great that this symposium is focusing on those other issues because there are so many things for us to talk about. And that's just great to see. But look, here's some other issues that we're not even talking about today, but certainly social media will impact it, right? Copyright, freedom of speech, crowdfunding, that's a great topic. Rights of publicity, trademarks, terms of service, how it impacts all those different areas. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, right? That's why, so the class that I teach at UT, when I talk about social media law, every week we go down one of these different topics, because I don't want to focus just on marketing. It's so many interesting issues that we're all seeing here. So I encourage you all, don't end with this symposium. Keep this discussion alive, right? Figure out how social media is impacting your world, even if it's not a core part of your practice or your future practice. It's going to be part of it. Just how is it going to be part of your practice? It's an important thing to know. All right, here's some fun social media statistics, because there's always some fun ones, and these are just some of my favorites. First, 1 in 5 couples meet online, and that's 3 in 5 for gay couples. That's really interesting, right? Very different from several years ago. 1 in 5 divorces involve Facebook. I'm not sure if that's related to that first stat, but let's face it, we wouldn't be surprised. What happens in Vegas? It stays on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Right? I love this one because we created a technology that was designed to have these quick and instantaneous communications, right? Something quick and easy and simple. And what we did is we created something that will last forever, right? I mean, I can't find something I printed out a year ago, but you can be sure that an email server has all of my emails from a year ago, right? Or all of my tweets. I mean, those are all out there, right? So it's really interesting to see that. Katy Perry, Justin Bieber, and Lady Gaga, each independently, have more Twitter followers than the population of these countries: Canada, Sweden, Israel, Greece, Chile, and Australia. Yes, that's true. How scary is that, right? A lot more people are following them than live in those countries. So, here's another fun one. Ford Explorer, a couple years ago, did a launch on Facebook, and that launch actually generated more traffic than the Super Bowl ad that they did. We're seeing that more and more. How many here have already seen Super Bowl ads online, right? Yeah, everyone. You've all seen the puppy with the Clydesdale, right? It's probably already going to win the Super Bowl, and we haven't even had the Super Bowl, right? How many of you have also seen the Scarlett Johansson commercial that was banned from the Super Bowl, right? Yeah, there's that. And Newcastle, the beer company, has also been doing a great series of like what we could have done if we'd had the money to do a Super Bowl event. It's like you don't need to do a Super Bowl commercial anymore. I mean, it's still fun to watch, but these marketing events can now get more traction on off the Super Bowl than they can on, which is not good if you bought the Super Bowl rights. YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world. We all know what the first one is. Oh, by the way, it's the same company. So that's kind of interesting as well. And 90% of consumers trust peer recommendations, while only 14% trust ads. That one stat alone is the reason why you've got all the brands participating on social media and getting more involved with just the marketing, but also getting involved with community outreach, reaching out to peer reviewers, right? It's all because of that. I mean, doesn't everyone here, when you buy something from Amazon, the first thing you do is you read the reviews, right? And like most of you, I don't know, maybe it's just me, I go immediately to the one-star reviews. I'm like, okay, why was that so bad? All right, I don't care, I'll buy it anyway, right? But that's really interesting. I'm trusting these people I've never met before more than I would trust a commercial, right? Probably all of you do the same. That's interesting. Here's the wrong analogy, by the way, when we talk about law and social media, that it's the wild, wild west. I can say this because I'm from Texas, and Texas does not look like this. I mean, there's a couple spots in West Texas that look like this, but we don't talk about that. But it's not the wild, wild west out there, right? This is not, the first person out there, you get to make all the rules. We've already been talking about some of the rules. There was that great discussion about the uniform law that will be proposed about digital assets, right, and afterlife. That's great. I mean, we're seeing more and more of that. But it was never this case. It was always the case of figuring out how those regulations applied. Here's what I think the right analogy is that social media is that giant UFO that has just appeared over our cities, right? It's something we've got to deal with. And we actually do have some rules in place that we can start to deal with it. But yeah, we're going to have to make up some new rules as it goes along, right? And the time that we're in right now is a very awkward transition, right? We're trying to figure out what are the new rules, what are the existing ones. One of my favorite applications, a very confusing one, Facebook sued a spammer. His name was Max Bounty, not his real name. That was just a cool spam name. But they were suing him because he was setting up all these fake accounts on Facebook. And they had to use the CAN-SPAM law, right? Federal legislation about unsolicited commercial communications. And they got a favorable ruling, but the judge was also saying that commercial communications on Facebook need to comply with CAN-SPAM. And if anyone who's worked with CAN-SPAM, you're like, how do you do that? Because there are requirements. You have to have a subject line that discloses it's a commercial communication. There are no subject lines on Facebook, right? You have to have an unsubscribe link on those emails. You can't do that on Facebook, right? This is that awkward transition time. But we're getting there, right? We're slowly coming along. We've got a lot more people interested in the topic, like this room, so that's great. And so that kind of sets the stage for the stories that we tell, right? Social media is about conversations, but really teaching, really talking about these things, these lessons, they're all about stories. And so with that, let's go into the 7 stories that I want to tell you about social media and the law. The first one, as all stories begin once upon a time, right? It's knowing that there are other characters out there and you are not alone in the social media world. This is the Honda Crosstour. Do we have any Honda Crosstour owners in the place? No? Good. Because I'm going to make a little bit of fun of it. Not just me, but the entire world, right? This is, in the industry, this is known as a highly polarizing design, which is code for everyone hates it. Right? When Honda rolled this out, I mean, they kind of knew it was going to happen, and so they did some soft release to it. And here was one of the quotes from a popular blog. 81.7% of you feel the Crosstour should be killed with fire, and 3% of you think it's good looking. So, they knew this was going to be highly polarizing. So they did a soft launch on Facebook. They wanted to put the photos out there just to see, okay, what's the public reaction going to be? How do we address this when we do our official announce and our press releases and all these kinds of bullets, right? And in the middle of doing that soft launch, and all the comments are really, really negative. They did get one comment from an Eddie Okubu, and it says, "Interesting design. I'd get this car in a heartbeat. I may be in the older crowd with my kids out of the house, and I still need some space and performance. I don't need anything big." That's not a glowing endorsement, but in the context of everyone saying this should be killed with fire, that was pretty positive, right? It may be kind of hard to read, but you can see the timestamp on this is, was it 8 minutes? Within 2 minutes, someone posts, "Sounds like you're trying to save your job at Honda." And a couple minutes after that, "Maybe you like it, Eddie, because you're the manager of product planning at Honda, light trucks in particular, LOL, with links to his LinkedIn profile and interviews he has given in the press about his project." 7 minutes. 7 minutes for that to happen, right? And let me tell you, Honda now had 2 stories they had to deal with the Crosstour, right? One was highly polarizing design, and 2 was Eddie, right? This is true. I mean, you will find lots of press if you go and Google this. I love the story of Honda Eddie. But it illustrates a very valuable point, right? Everything and everybody is connected, right? When these kinds of things happen, they're going to view your actions negatively if you aren't transparent. And it's going to happen before you know it, if you are a brand or a company or an organization or a school, right? 7 minutes, no one knew this was happening. It was too late by the time they found out, right? Really interesting in terms of that great unknown, right? So that's story number 1. Story number 2, look, all stories have the great unknown, and there's always got to be a monster out there. This is what I consider the greatest monster in the social media space. I call him the informal tone beast. He's luring you into a false sense of intimacy. I'm not saying that you want to be intimate with that, right? Maybe you are. I'm not here to judge. But really, it's about this informal tone that it goes across all of social media, right? We're on there. People are just having these quick and easy conversations. And we sometimes forget that everybody is watching it, right? The story that I used to give is I was fairly confident that if some random employee at Dell picked up their phone and on the other end of the phone said, "Hi, my name is Bob Smith, and I'm a reporter with the Washington Post, and I was wondering if you would comment on an unannounced Dell product that may be coming out in the next couple weeks." 99.9% of Dell employees would, hang up the phone. I mean, maybe they'd scream and run away, or they would say, "You need to talk to PR," and click disconnect, right? They're not going to comment on it because they know better than that. But what percentage of users online that are Dell employees might see a story about some leaked photos about a new product, and they might post a comment on there, or they might click like, or they might say, "Oh yeah, I saw this last week, it was awesome," right? A lower percentage than 99.9. That's that informal tone. It's kind of creeping in. It's making us lower our guard. And so it leads to a lot of interesting scenarios that present some legal risks. The first is that look, there was this case, the Google engineer who decided to post a really long rant about everything that was wrong at Google, and he did the social media equivalent of the reply all, and when he posted his rant, instead of posting it to his friends, he posted it to everyone, right, on Google, so that's only, everyone, right? This is a guy whose job it is to write social media platforms, and he made this mistake, which means all of you can make it, if you haven't already, right? If he can be lured in, we all can be lured in. It attacks everyone. The informal tone beast also, it impacts my clicker. No, it makes us forget that we've scheduled posts. That can happen too. Whoops, we just kind of forgot about that. Here was one instance back in 2012 when Batman 3 opened up and there was that shooting that happened in Aurora, Colorado, right? Late Thursday night, early Friday morning, killed a lot of people, injured a lot more people as well. Very late at night, right? So most people were asleep like when it happened. But then by the time everyone woke up, that was the headline, right? Everyone was talking about that. Unfortunately, the NRA's official publication hadn't seen the story, had a scheduled tweet. "Good morning, shooters. Happy Friday. Weekend plans?" Ouch. Right? They got so much negative feedback they had to suspend the account. They later got it reinstated by Twitter, some help there. The initial feedback was that this was a scheduled tweet. It actually wasn't. It was just posted by an intern who just, forgot to read the headlines that day, or literally the first thing he did was post that tweet. Maybe he was running late. I don't know. But informal, right? Like not forgetting to just do some basic work on that. But around the same incident, it also sometimes makes us just forget to look up something. So we had a a fashion boutique that said, oh, hey, Aurora's trending. That's clearly about our Kim Kardashian-inspired Aurora dress with a link to go buy that dress. Like, this one is a special level of informality, which is code for stupidity, right? In that they were on Twitter, they saw Aurora is a trending link, and rather than, click it to find out why everyone was talking about Aurora, they just decided, oh, it must be about our dress. No, not about your dress. Informal tone piece also makes us forget that we have some other responsibilities, right? So, for example, Gene Morphus, who's a chief financial officer, publicly traded company that deals with retail, Francesca Holdings, the Francesca retail store. I don't know, maybe some people know it. I don't, obviously. On March 7th, 2012, he sent out this tweet. Oh, I just had a board meeting. Good numbers equals happy board, right? Prior to publicly disclosing his company's financials. By the way, any future CFOs, you don't do this, just so you know. There's some really technical rules, but here's the simple one. You don't do that. Turns out he'd sent a bunch of other tweets as well. This was in March. He was fired on May 14th, once the company became aware of his posts on May 11th. So they found out on May 11th, this tweet, a bunch of others, fired him on May 14th. Why 3 days, you may ask? It was the weekend. That's really the only reason, right? Otherwise, it would have been like the day after. This effectively was. So, yeah, that informal tone piece. He was just on Twitter and decided to post confidential stuff. It also makes us think everything is connected. We get to talk about it. So here was this example. The day after the Boston Marathon bombing, you have a food website, Epicurious, that posted, in honor of Boston and New England, may we suggest whole grain cranberry scones! Exclamation point. Or Boston, our hearts are with you. Here's a bowl of breakfast energy we could all use to start today, with links. I mean, insensitive is the nice way to describe that, right? They later had to apologize for that as well. But again, informal, not thinking things through, not thinking that maybe it's not nice to connect your website's content with a horrific attack. Just a thought. That's that monster that's out there. Like all monsters, they need to be fought, right? They need to be attacked and killed. Unfortunately, social media and the social media revolution is blunting a lot of our traditional legal weapons that we've had available in the past. Here's a great example of that. A photographer named Kenneth Adelman was hired to document the California coastline. He got in an airplane and would fly up and down the coastline taking thousands of photographs every single year in order to document erosion and how things were happening. So it was an official study commissioned by the California Coastal Records Project. And in the early 2000s, they put all of the photos from many, many years of doing this, over 12,000 of them, up on a publicly available website, Pictopia. This image, it's a little bit hard to see, but it was descriptively named image 3850. And you can see that has a very large house right on a cliff, and it's located in Malibu. Does anyone know whose house this was? Anyone want to hazard a guess? What's that? Streisand. That is absolutely correct. And the Streisand effect was born because Barbara Streisand, who lives in that house, sued Kenneth Adelman and the whole project, saying, you just showed my house. The problem with that and her invasion of privacy suit is that prior to her suing, the photo had been downloaded a grand total of 6 times, and at least 2 of them were by her attorneys. And in just the months preceding, or the month following her filing the lawsuit, it was downloaded 420,000 times. Right? She created the problem that she was talking about, right? Just with a typical invasion of privacy suit, which I think that her lawyers just kind of had it on record, right? Or had it on file. They just kind of changed a couple of things and posted it. You can also read the whole lawsuit if you want, because I think it's really, really interesting. Here are a couple of the excerpts that I find oddly ironic. Some quotes from the complaint. The property is owned by an entity which cannot be traced with any certainty back to her, except that you just told everyone by filing your lawsuit about it. I love this one. Plaintiff's living quarters are set back from the brink of the cliff. In fact, to catch a glimpse of her living quarters, you would have to walk a significant distance from the property, either to the north or the south. So, stalkers, in case you are wondering how to find out where Barbara lives, here's some steps on how to do it. And by entering the word Streisand on the website's own search engine, one is immediately taken to the detailed picture. Now, that is true, but that's because the house was owned by, like, the Streisand Fund or the Streisand Trust, right? Going back to their earlier point, oh, it can't be traced back to her. Like, really? How many Streisands owned Malibu mansions like there? There's one. So yeah, that was fun. The outcome of the case, I don't think it's too surprising. There's a 45-page ruling against her. She did not win the case. The court, though, I mean, the court probably, you know how courts are, right? This is probably the best case they ever had in their lives, right? So they embarked on some very rigorous analysis and research. They went back to all the way to People magazine, where Barbara took People magazine on a tour through her house and showed them everything, right? So you could see that that's what it was. And they even went into research about California's coastal history of the 1850s. I mean, maybe it was a slow docket, right? But they had fun with this one. Oh, and the final result, in case you can't see, that's a check made out to Ken Adelman for $155,000 for his attorney's fees, right? Yeah, he won. He won big. I mean, he didn't make a profit off of it, but I'm sure it was difficult. But yeah, this is our normal, course of action. Trying to sue over these things has to change with social media, right? Because the Streisand effect was born there. And the Streisand effect continues, and not just for celebrities. It also impacts any kind of any little people that has a fight against someone bigger. This is just one case. Julianne Smith, who left a church. She just had some disagreements with the way that they conducted themselves. She left some negative reviews on Google. Those reviews were pulled down after the church complained, so she started a blog. Right, the blog had almost no hits. She had maybe her best day, she was like, wow, I got 10 hits today, right? She even blogged that. So no one was reading this, but the church decided to sue her for $500,000 for defamation. Boom, instant, huge media story. Now suddenly everyone's reading this. Her blog's getting thousands of hits, and by the way, she won the suit, right? So this is just something that happens, little guy versus big guy. Happens all the time, not just with lawsuits, but also cease and desist, right? That's something that lawyers used to just send out all the time, especially if you were representing a big brand, right? But if you do that now, if you represent a big giant brand and someone has a blog post or something and you send out a cease and desist, what is the first thing that happens? Anyone? They post it on the site. That's exactly right. The cease and desist goes up, and then traffic will increase, right? Tons of examples there. There was a great one against Starbucks, right, where a guy that was selling a Frappuccino beer got a cease and desist from their attorneys, so he sent them back an awesome letter and a check for $6. You can Google that one as well, but this is our standard weapons from a decade or two ago no longer exist, right? We have to find new ways of dealing with all of these legal threats that are out there. All right, good. All right, story 4. Before social media came about, when large brands or companies or institutions were going to put content out for the public to read or consume, it was going through large committees, or a lot of people were touching this content. But brands and companies, as we all know, are composed of people. And really, when it comes down to social media, it comes down to one person. One person who is owning that account, who's owning that community page, who is responsible for putting that content up. And sometimes that major multi-billion-dollar brand is trusting the wrong person to post their social media content, right? So it's that one guy that may do something bad for a company, right? Like that one guy who gets your ad agency fired from Chrysler by tweeting, "I find it ironic that Detroit is known as the Motor City and yet no one here knows how to bleeping drive." Posted from Chrysler Auto's official Twitter account. Yeah, that ad agency that controlled the account fired the next day, right? Or it's that guy that has the password to your account and you're firing him and you forgot that he had the password, right? Or you didn't change it before, so he decides to start tweeting while you're firing him. This happened with HMV, right, the large music store chain. "Hey, we're tweeting live from the HR where we're all being fired. Exciting!" Hashtag HMV X Factor firing. There are over 60 of us being fired at once. Mass execution of loyal employees who love the brand. Sorry we've been quiet for so long. Under contract, we've been unable to say a word or, more importantly, tell the truth. Right? This is all happening very, very quickly, as you can see from the timestamps within a couple minutes. A few more minutes go by. "Hey, I just overheard our marketing director, he's staying, folks, ask, how do I shut down Twitter?" Doesn't get it on so many levels, right? So, yeah, you have to be careful of that one guy as well. You also have to be careful of the guy posting from the wrong account. So here's from the American Red Cross. "Hey, Ryan," that's not me, "found 2 more 4-bottle packs of Dogfish Head's Midas Touch beer. When we drink, we do it right. Hashtag getting slizzard." If you can read that timestamp, posted 11:24 p.m., so from Hootsuite, which is a well-known tool for managing multiple accounts, right? So literally the person's just on their phone and just posted from the wrong one, and that happened to be the American Red Cross. They actually did a great job responding to it, and so did the beer company, right? And they said, don't worry, he's not driving, and they did a good job responding, but that's how simple it can be, right? Don't give them that password, especially when they're going out that night. There's also that one person who decides they want to offend people because why not? In this case, it's Kenneth Cole, who posted during the middle of the Green Revolution, right, in Egypt, so massive riots. Millions are in uproar in Cairo. Rumor is they heard our new spring collection is now available online. That didn't go over well, shocking. So they had to respond by saying, regarding that tweet, we weren't intending to make light of a serious situation. We understand the sensitivity of this historic moment. No, he doesn't. He continues to post things. A few months ago when we were going through the national debate of whether the U.S. would get involved in Syria, and the phrase was going around boots on ground, right? Are we going to actually go into the country to do something? Kenneth Cole decided to get involved in this serious international debate by saying, boots on the ground or not, let's not forget about sandals, pumps, and loafers. I mean, he said publicly that he doesn't mind offending people, right? Because he just gets called out and no one's going to stop buying his stuff. I don't know if that's true, how far he'll go with it, but there are those people who will offend on purpose, and is that the person that you want running your social media brand? In this case, he owns the company, so he gets to, but we'll see what happens. But there are a lot of people who may offend just on accident. You can see lots of examples there. But again, it's, in the old days, we had a little bit more control over who was sending these messages. Now, not so much. Then you also have people who just, it seems like they just want to watch the world burn, right? They just want to burn all of the bridges and, see what happens. And these are the people that just shouldn't be on social media, but they are. And so they're going to create some fascinating risks for them that we can all help guide them through. Here's the best story there on this. I want you to meet Amy and Sammy. Anyone know this story already? Because this is just awesome. All right. So Amy and Sammy own this. It's Amy's baking company. I think it's in Tucson. I don't know. It's in Arizona. It's a hot place, right? Crazy people in the desert. So Amy's baking company, they own this. They decided to go on this, Gordon Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares. If you've ever seen it, right, it's a restaurant that's doing poorly. Gordon Ramsay comes in, he documents how they're horrible, and then he tries to turn them around. This episode did not go well. The normal format is he comes in and observes them, implements some changes, and then they try it out, and then either it works or doesn't. He didn't make it past the first day. Like, they just had so many conflicts that he ended up getting kicked out. That picture on the bottom, by the way, is Sammy, where he was having a physical confrontation with a customer who had ordered a pizza that had not arrived within 2 hours and decided to leave. And so Sammy decided to assault him and make him pay for the pizza that he hadn't received. If you haven't seen this episode, go and watch it. It's the greatest episode of Kitchen Nightmares ever, but of several other genres as well. But the episode aired as the season finale of Kitchen Nightmares a few months ago. And when the episode aired, there started to be a lot of negative comments about the restaurant. And so Sammy and Amy decided to take to Facebook to defend themselves. Right? Sammy and I will stand strong through the oppression that has been thrown at us. Oppression? Ouch. We ask that our supporters keep us in their prayers through this rough and unjust time in our lives. Thank all of you, and thank God we will not bend to the will of these haters and sinners. Okay, look, we've all had those moments. But when I say that they decided to defend themselves, what I really mean is they decided to go nuts. Here's their next post, all caps, that always helps. I am not stupid, all of you are. Good. You just do not know good food. It is not uncommon to resell things. Walmart does not make their electronics or toys, so lay off. That's a great argument. But you can see like 41 people are liking it, a little bit more people are sharing it, right? The conversation's heating up. Really nuts, by the way. We do not need this, you stupid people. America is about wrestling. I think they mean reselling and not the wine. It is not a big deal. The cakes we offer are expensive because we have to repackage and ship. Do not blame us because you can't afford it. The Yelpers and now the Reddits need to back off. You're not right just because of some TV show. Okay, that's all right. Again, in all caps, it's getting a little bit more attention. 45 people are liking that. And how nuts did they go? They went after Reddit. Reddit's like the front page of the internet. That's where if you ever see a story that goes viral on Facebook and like all your friends start posting it, it was on Reddit 4 hours ago, okay? It is truly where all the content kind of starts to gain traction. To Reddit, I forbid you from spreading your hate on that site. This is my Facebook, really? And I am not allowing you to use my company on your hate-filled page. Oh, 53 people are liking that. It's starting to heat up some more. And then they said the words you never say to people on the internet, bring it on. Because there's more of them than there are you, in case you don't know math. To all the Yelpers and Reddits, bring it on. You are just bad people. Come to Arizona, you are weaker than my wife. That's nice. And weaker than me, okay. Come to my business, say it to my face, man to man, you're pathetic. A lot more people are liking this. This is starting to go viral because they involved Reddit. So now Reddit starts posting about this, and now all the Reddit people are going to the Facebook page, and they're getting involved. Oh yeah, here's another thing. Don't threaten legal action, right? I mean, if you're a lawyer, don't threaten it, just do it. Right? Or send a letter. Don't do it on Facebook. But, this is Sammy. I'm keeping note of all names here. We will be pursuing action against you legally and against Reddit and Yelp for this plot you've come together on. You are all just punks. I love this comment on there, too. Oh, this is Tony. Please add me to the list so I don't miss the court proceedings, because it's going to be awesome, right? Tony actually got more likes than Sammy did, so it's still going, people. We are not freaking out. We do not care about a witch hunt. I am not a witch. People, if you ever find yourselves in the situation where you are saying the words, I am not a witch, you need to stop. I am not a witch. I am not a bully. Any of those kind of things, something has gone terribly wrong when you were saying that. Go away, all of you. Bleep Reddit, bleep Yelp, and bleep all of you. Bring it. We will fight back. Okay. We'll keep bringing it. You don't know us. We will thrive. We will overcome. We are starting our family. We will teach our child what God wants, right? You're all oppressing him. Horrible people like Gordon. It's getting more attention. Oh, and here's an important thing. They're not extraterrestrials. They want you to know this. I am Wonder Woman. I am a great chef, a great wife, and a great mom to my kids, and we will be parents to a human kid one day, too. Any parents here that have referred to their child as a human kid ever? Really? Wait, I saw a hand. Wait, that was strange. We will show all of you. And then they decide to teach themselves Photoshop in about 10 minutes. That doesn't go over well. They took a screenshot of the conversation that was going on Reddit about their page and about this total meltdown, and it's impossible to read on this, I apologize. But if you go down there saying, oh yeah, what's going on over there? Oh, they found out that we're talking about them on Reddit, and that's why they're heading over to Facebook, so that's why they started mentioning us, right, that whole bring it on. So they took a screenshot of that, and then they photoshopped at the very bottom saying, hey, everyone, you need to stop, the police just called me. And then Sammy posted it saying, see, we are going to get you, right? And like everyone immediately saw, that's a different font. Like that's not the font Reddit uses, right? So, we're really not scared at all. So, yeah, that was a fun one. You just have your sides. You were all just little punks, nothing, you're all nothing. We're laughing at you, all of you. We have gone our sides, and you just have, the internet. 757 people are loving that one, right? Yeah, and by the next day, they decided that maybe that wasn't a good idea, right? So then they posted that, obviously our Facebook, Yelp, Twitter, website, brains have been hacked. We're working with the local authorities as well as the FBI Computer Crimes Unit to ensure this doesn't happen. Oh, we didn't post these horrible things. Yes, they did. They had a similar meltdown on Yelp a few months before. In fact, that's probably what brought them to the attention of Kitchen Nightmares. Kitchen Nightmares probably got exactly what they wanted. But these are the kind of people that now have direct access to marketing, right? And direct access to a story going viral, right? Like we all saw the story over winter break about the PR executive who tweeted out that horribly racist tweet about going to Africa, right? And then by the time she landed in South Africa, she was fired, right? She had, the great thing about that story, not that she did it, right? I mean, that's obviously horrible, but she had less than 500 followers, which for someone working in a PR world, that's not a lot, right? That story was on the front page of CNN while she was still on the plane. That's how quickly these things can spread. But that's also dangerous because that's how quickly these things can spread. So that's Amy's. They shut down, by the way, in the wake of all of that show. They reopened as ABC Bistro. But even though they have a new name, they still do have the same attitude. After being named as one of the worst bosses of the year, they decided to respond to that with some videos from their employees. But please note, you can't notice because of the resolution, the shirt that he's wearing says ABC, here's your pizza, go F yourself. But yeah, but that's a new attitude. So these are your potential clients. You're welcome, right? Social media will keep us all working for many, many years. But yes, so that's one of the stories. Another story, right? True with all kind of genres and tales that we tell. The more that you tell them, the lines start to get blurred, right? Genres start mixing. And when it comes to social media, where is the line? Where is the boundary? It's all over the place. Here's the example of this. It's one of my favorite cases. Daniel Morel versus Agence French Presse. That's how we say French words in Texas. And the Washington Post. Here's the summary. A New York court interpreting California law to determine if a French press agency obtained rights to a Haitian photographer's pictures under Twitter's terms of service. Choice of law is just one issue here, folks, but that is the case. He was a photographer, well-known photojournalist who was living in Haiti when the earthquake hit a few years ago. So he posted photos to TwitPic, right? So that he could get the photos out to his agent. But all these other press agencies saw it, and so they just grabbed the photos and ran it on all of their newspapers without paying him, without giving him attribution, like all of these things. And finally, he got it shut down. So that whole case that went down, they found, yeah, that's infringement, right? I mean, a lot of what it comes down to is, no, you just because you can copy those images, you can download them, doesn't mean you get to then use them, especially in a commercial setting. So he got the ruling in his favor. It took several months for them to compute the damages. The damages just came down a few months ago. Anyone seen this case? Anyone know how much he got for this? Want to take a guess? No? Oh, come on. All right, fine. $1.2 million. That's a good payday, right? But it just comes down to warning your clients, right? Warning your companies, yeah, you can't just copy and paste that photo. There's a little bit more to it than that, right? But things are getting really, really fuzzy. And then the last story I want to tell before we open up some questions and then lunch, is this theme of social justice, because the law is about the pursuit of justice, right? I mean, whether it's in its noble intentions of freeing, wrongly convicted people, or even just down to making sure that the contract is right, so that both of the parties, are doing what they set out to do. That's kind of the end of all stories, right? Happily ever after, hopefully. Social media is both really good and really bad when it comes to justice, or when it comes to good endings. Here is, unfortunately, one example where they're really bad. Finding the Boston Marathon bombing suspects, really bad at doing that. An area of Reddit decided to take it upon themselves to comb through all of the photographs taken from public security cameras and just webcams all over the area, and comb through it in order to find the suspects. Because all of them have watched at least 2 episodes of CSI. They're fully equipped to do these kinds of things. So they posted all these images. These are the 2 people that they started to align on, because as they noticed, this guy had a bag in one photo, and then later he did not have a bag. That could be related to the fact that he just run a marathon, but they decided to take it upon themselves to say, no, he's a suspect. And some of the seedier side of it was that all of the suspects that Reddit identified weren't white. Right, and it turns out the 2 actual guys were, right? But that's just one example. They're not good at it. It turns out the FBI and all the other police people, they were good at it. They used similar resources and found 2 people. But what's also dangerous here is that social media identifies these things, and then that's getting picked up by the mainstream press, or as mainstream as the New York Post is considered, right? This was their headline the next day. Feds seek these 2 pictured. No, the feds were actually never seeking them. And New York Post never asked either. They took the Reddit thread as their resource. That can be a little bit dangerous. If you didn't follow that story, so the student, he was actually I think a high school student, the one in the blue vest. He did turn himself into police only because he was terrified. Right now, he's on the front page of the New York Post, identified as a bombing suspect. He doesn't want to get shot by just someone out in the public. So he turned himself in, and they're like, no, you're cool. He's like, I don't want to leave. But then they found someone, so that's okay. But that's just one example where it's really, really bad. But social media works in a couple of cases. And so here's one. I just love this story, and it's very fitting that we're going to tell the story in a music hall, because it involves some music. This story has a few parties, a few players in our dramatic scene, so let's go ahead and meet them. Our first party in this story is Sir Mix-a-Lot. Yes, that's Sir Mix-a-Lot. His real name is Anthony Ray. I know you all know that. I just wanted to make sure. And his biggest hit was a song called Baby Got Back. Anyone familiar with that song, right? You all should be familiar with that song. Come on. If not, we'll listen to it in a little bit. Yeah. He won the 1993 Grammy for Best Rap Solo Performance. And lest you think that was an easy Grammy to win and just kind of a gimme, he was up against MC Hammer, Queen Latifah, Marky Mark, and LL Cool J. Right? Think of what LL Cool J hosted the Grammys, has won several Grammys. Marky Mark is a multiple Oscar-nominated actor. Queen Latifah nominated for an Oscar award. MC Hammer watches the Oscars almost every year. Right? This was quite the class, and he won. His video that I took a frame from, right, it only aired at night on MTV. This is, kids, this is when MTV showed videos, just so you know. They used to show music videos, and yes, that video is two women dancing on a giant butt, right? That's, this was racy. This was scandalous, right? This was the Miley Cyrus twerking of the 1990s. So in 20 years, we'll look back on Miley in the same way. But yes, so that's our first party, Sir Mix-a-Lot. Remember him. Our second party is Jonathan Colton. I don't know if anyone knows Jonathan Colton. I wouldn't be surprised if only like one or two did. That's Jonathan. He's a singer-songwriter, and he first gained some degree of internet notoriety by releasing one new song a week. He'd worked in some music jobs, but then he decided that he was going to go his own way, and so he started a blog, one song per week, right? Every single week, a new song. And this is what he released on week 5. He did a cover of Baby Got Back by Sir Mix-a-Lot. Note, he is not an actual knight. This is from his blog description of it. Basically, he decided to bring in a lot of different instruments. He wanted to cover the song for a long time because it's excellent. There's a wonderful message in there for those of you who have big butts. It's true. And in the proud tradition of many white Americans who came before me, I hereby steal and whiteify this thick and juicy piece of black culture. Watch for my album, Jonathan Colton Sings Songs by Black People. Right? He's a funny guy, right? And he released this song, and people thought that was funny. In the entire year, I think this was the only cover that he did. All the others were original. Some of them were very, very funny. But he put that song out. Okay, that's our second party. Our third party, Glee. I know you all know who it is, but let's just pretend you don't. Glee is a show on Fox. It features kids who sing at random intervals. And just about a year ago, they released an episode called Sadie Hawkins. And in the Sadie Hawkins episode, they had a group at the a school in New York who sings Baby Got Back. And that song sounded oddly familiar to fans of Jonathan Colton. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually play a little bit of the song so that you can understand a little bit more of the controversy. There's the social media attorney for State Farm, the insurance company. His name is Brian Abamont, and he has the greatest Twitter handle, which is Legally Dead. So all of you on Twitter, go tweet Legally Dead and say, Ryan says hi. That'll be funny. But he has a great saying, right, as an insurance attorney who's investigating all these things, like, go to the scene of the crime, right? You really need to be there to understand the controversy rather than just having the description. So the scene of the crime here is the music. So I'm going to play a little bit of this music so that you can understand, and I think the mic will pick it up. But here is the original version of Baby Got Back. Those of you that know the words, feel free to get up and start singing. You're in a music hall, people. Live it up. It's 1 o'clock. We're going crazy. This is the original version, though, for those of you that haven't heard it. Okay, we know where that's going, right? I mean, you probably heard the song, even if you don't know all the words, although 90% of you do. It's all right. But that was the original version of Baby Got Back. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the version that Jonathan Coulton released. Remember when he talked about whiteifying this song? And this is the song that he wrote, right? Baby Got Back. You just heard the inspiration. Now here is his version. I'm going to turn up even a little bit more. Obviously a remake. That's one of those songs where you're hearing it and then you're like, listening to the words, you're like, wait, what? That's awesome. And the song goes on, right? But it's almost word for word the original. He does change like a couple of words, but it's that kind of musical theme throughout, right? And that was the Jonathan Coulton version. Now I'm going to play the Glee version for you. Does that sound familiar to anyone in the room? Yeah, a little bit. Here's what I'm going to do now. Unfortunately, we don't have video piped in, so you can't see what I'm doing. I'm using a tool that on the right channel, I have posted the Glee version, or the Jonathan Coulton version, and on the left channel, that's for my computer, so reverse it, is the Glee version. And they are going to play simultaneously, right, at the exact same time. Okay, listen to both of these songs being played at the exact same moment. I think you get the picture, right? I won't play more of that. But what was interesting there is that, if you listen, you hear the voices being a little bit different, but did you hear one note that was different between the two? No, you didn't. Because what Glee did was they took the Jonathan Coulton version and literally just sang over it, right? They didn't say, that's a really interesting idea to have a white version of Baby Got Back, and let's make our own arrangement of it, like they make so many other arrangements. They just downloaded the Coulton track and played right over it. It's even more obvious later on because the words that Jonathan Coulton changed are still there, right? They didn't even scrub out his vocals. That's tricky to do anyway. But they literally just sang right over it, right? So that's what Glee did. Here's kind of the reaction and what happened afterwards, right? The problem here for Jonathan Coulton is that he didn't really have a legal cause of action. Right? And the problem here, for those of you that have studied copyright, and for those of you that haven't, look, because we don't have time to get into copyright law, right? But just know that if you're going to remake someone's song, you've got two options. The first is you can go to the original artist, and you can ask for a license to make a derivative work, right? And you can make your own version of it and do whatever you want with it. But the original artist can say no, and then you're kind of stuck, right? The other thing you can do is you can obtain a compulsory license. Copyright code doesn't allow for this, right? Here's the section of it, compulsory license, so it's automatic. But here, when you go to the middle, the arrangement shall not change the basic melody or fundamental character of the work, and shall not be subject to protection as a derivative work, right? Except without express consent. When Jonathan Coulton released his albums, the year or so before, of his one song a week, he just got a compulsory license for Baby Got Back. He didn't go to Sir Mix-a-Lot or whoever owned the rights to get the derivative. The right to make a derivative work. So he released it as a compulsory license copy, which means he has no protection, right? And that's kind of problematic. I mean, we could have some discussion about whether that changed the fundamental character of the work or the basic melody. I think it kind of did, but if it did change the basic melody, then it's a derivative work and he doesn't have a license to it, right? So now he has to admit copyright infringement in order to sue Glee. Right, and then you've got unclean hands, it becomes ugly. So he kind of was in a tight spot, right? He knew that his work had been ripped off without any kind of credit or attribution except the community of his fans who realized it. So he couldn't really do much. So, and here's how it all kind of unfolded. And Jonathan Coulton had found out about the song that was coming up on his blog because there had been a preview of the episode that had leaked a couple of seconds of it. And so there was an early release of the tune that sounded very similar to his version, right? We heard it, and it doesn't sound like any other version of Baby Got Back out there. Not that I've scoured, for all the different versions, but it doesn't. But then when the final version of the song came out, like the night that the Glee episode aired, his fans are the ones that put together that audio analysis that I played for you, right? Where they put one track right on top of the other. And all they had to do was just set the right starting time so that you could see that the notes exactly overlap. So that came out. It was obvious it was copied, but also, I guess, obvious to him after consulting with his attorney, there's not much he could do. So here's what he did instead, is he re-released his song. And he called it Baby Got Back in the style of Glee, and even did a new photo that looked like that. And here's where social media kind of took over in terms of maybe getting some justice for Mr. Coulton. The reviews on Amazon for the Glee version of Baby Got Back were 1 star out of 13 reviews. That was in like the first week after it came out. It's now up to about 35. And the Coulton is 5 stars on 21 reviews. That's now up to 188. I just checked this a couple weeks ago, so almost a year later, right? And Amazon sells MP3s, but not as big as the bigger seller of digital music, which is iTunes. The Glee version there, 1.5 star based on 2,600 reviews. And almost all those reviews have a comment on them. You can guess what those comments are. And the Coulton version, 5 stars with 3,300 reviews. So almost all of that activity came within almost the first week of being released. But there's just one example of, okay, so there may not be an exact legal remedy here, and maybe Fox didn't do anything legally wrong, but certainly there are some moral, ethical issues, I don't know, and maybe there's something that social media can do to help that out, right? Or at least those communities can do to identify the wrong and try to address it in some way. So it's interesting in that sense. And those are those 7 stories that I have. And there's so many stories unfolding on social media, right? We've just been talking about some of them. We've just kind of touched the cover of it, but it'll be fascinating to see how these things unfold. That's the great thing about having these kinds of talks, having these kinds of symposiums. So definitely, keep your eyes peeled, your ears tuned, keep checking the blogs, right? See all those new stories that come out, and we'll have to see how these brand new kind of fascinating issues unfold. So now we can open up to questions, but like in Survivor, when the power switches to the jury, recognize that when you ask questions, you are now the person between this whole room and lunch. But definitely, any questions about what we've talked about social media? I'm mostly blinded, so I can't see if anyone has hands up, but if not, then go. All right, well, let's have lunch. I'll be around, and we can always. Oh, wait. Oh, someone pointed. What? There was a question up at the front. Yeah.
Earlier, you were saying that you already have laws to address the new kind of things that are coming out in social media. For like the app Snapchat, past few weeks, what's been happening is there's been advertisements on it. People are getting advertisements on it, and online people are kind of discussing on Reddit actually if it's like solicited, if they're being solicited, or if it's more like spam. How come you wouldn't like form a new area of law to address new things? Like why do you have to find this either spam, solicitation?
Yeah, so it's a great question of how do you categorize these things. There was a great comment made by one of the earlier panels, I think it was in employment, right, where it's like law is always 2 steps behind what the current tech is going to be. And so, anytime that we're reacting to something now, we're going to have to keep in mind how we're going to react to it, a year from now. So coming up with like a very specific rule would be problematic just, a week after that, right, the moment that we do. But in terms of how we have rules already covering it, we had the lawsuit over Facebook-sponsored posts, where it turns out that they were turning your posts into advertisements and maybe against their terms. That's kind of in that advertising world, but I think we see plenty of examples there. Courtney Love, right, her libel lawsuit that she just lost. I think she lost it, right? But it was she won, she lost, she won. Okay, her lawyer lost it. Oh, okay. based on a tweet, right? So I mean, that's new, it's short, but still fitting within the context of our kind of existing laws. So we can come up with new ones. That's always possible, and maybe there are times that we do. We just have to be careful of, is the law or the rule that we're coming up with addressing a situation now, and now we're going to make it just harder a year from now for us? Yeah, I don't know. What else? All right. Well, thank you.